Hello, everyone. How are you tonight? This is a special episode of Torn. It's Torn Tuesday, Juan, because you are in rehearsal every other day of the week.
Yes, I am. Yes, I am. Oh, mm,
Juan is the
life has
busiest
started back.
guy in theater right now, I think. um,
Possibly.
Welcome, everyone, to a special edition of Torn. I'm Lauren Van Hemer. Um, this is Juan Isler. And we're going to be addressing something. I think tonight, we're going to be talking about accountability. We're going to talk about white privilege. And I really, I'm hoping that we can talk about this from a, a place of humanity, a place from being human and not being corporate and not all this corporate speak that we all get caught up in when we talk about this. Um, and I hope, of course, you'll join the conversation by putting your comments and questions in the chat. So, what do you think, Juan? Where do you want to start?
Um, hmm. I don't know. Let's. Hmm. I think
Should we
I've
start with
beat
what
a.
happened last week?
You can, but I was gonna start somewhere else and
Oh,
then go
okay.
to that. But
Okay, let's start somewhere else. We'll work
I
our way
think
back
just
to
I
that.
think I think to some people I beat a they think I beat a dead horse, but it I don't think it's that way because it's still happening. um, and that is the statements that are being put out, or that have been put out, as far as theater goes, and or the lack of, um, to to put it quite frankly. Um, I keep reiterating that because, as I said, I just don't think it's getting through to people. And recently, I've inquired about some theaters who either never made a statement, or if they made a statement, they didn't go specifically in saying people of color. It was almost like saying the all lives matter thing. Well, if you can't admit that a black life matters with a knee on his neck, then you don't believe that all lives matter. Um, and so I'm trying to find a quote. Um, the silence is golden. And to quote Dr.
Let's
King,
just let Juan, I'm sorry to interrupt you, but let's just kind of be clear so people know what we're talking about. We're talking about the solidarity statements back after George Floyd was murdered. Many theaters around the world, around the country, around this area issued solidarity statements. Some did not. That's what we're talking about.
yes. Some were silent, or they, as well, and as I said, or they issued statements that more or less said all lives matter. Um, One of Dr. King's statement, it says, "In the end, we will remember not the words of our enemy, but the silence of our friends." Um, some how can some theater spaces call themselves my friend when they're being quiet and being silent about it? Um, I think that that's an issue. Um, and a year later, there haven't been as many torns as I honestly would like, but it's because things have started opening back up, and a lot of theater people that I would want to talk to are starting to do things, as far as acting and crew work. Not upset about that. And I have seen some theaters do the behind the scenes work that they didn't do before. Um, Excuse me, because they just weren't aware. Um, but then I've seen some theaters who, if I question them, it seems like they're trying more to cover their tracks in their statement to me than just admitting, okay, we dropped the ball. How do we fix this? But it also leads to what happened last week. Um, I can't. Did you do something that I can't see him, Lauren? I can't see the
What?
statements at all.
The comments?
I don't see.
No,
Nope.
you should be able to see comments. Hold on, hold on. Okay. Can you see
Okay,
them?
there you go. Mm-hmm. I
Okay.
see him now. Out of silence is something
Um,
seen as a sign of betrayal. Okay, yeah, sure,
Qualia,
sure,
we see
yeah.
you.
We see you, Quay. She talking about I'm just
Uh,
old. That's all. See, that's what my theater
okay.
my theater daughter. My theater daughter wants to get her behind whoop today. Anyway, so last week there was um Mama. Last week there was a live event that Lauren had, and in the during the live event, someone came on YouTube and just made some racist negative comments, and it
To our
bothered
guests.
Lauren. Yeah, to the guest, and the guest was of color, and I think it bothered Lauren. Probably, to be honest with you, probably more than me. Not that it doesn't bother me anymore, but I've dealt with it time and time again, and now this is just a new medium of dealing with it. The person, we don't know who the person was. Lauren deleted it immediately, and went on with the interview. We may never know who that person was, um, but in this with this new online stuff, there's a reason why with Zoom and stuff they want you to have password protection and all that stuff, because people will come up there just to get attention. Um, and some of them will have racist comments to make. It's not an ideal setting. I think it may have made the guests uncomfortable for a few seconds, but as I told Lauren, she was probably more uncomfortable than the guests because we're used to it. Just this is it's the truth. I'm not saying we want it to be used to it, but we're used to it in some way, shape, form, or fashion. But it's starting to be seen. And I did ask Lauren. Lauren and I spoke, and I said, let's address it. Um, let's come out. Let's put it out there. Let's say what it is, and move on and go on. Because that now you'll probably never see that person again. Because that person is a coward. They don't put their real name. Every social media thing I got has got my real name on it. I don't care if you know my name. It doesn't matter. But it also brings up the point about privilege. And for some reason, everyone thinks when you say privilege, it's you have money and you live in this big fancy house and you drive this big fancy car. That's not the type of privilege we're talking about. The privilege we're talking about is the fact that part of the privilege that we're talking about is the fact that if you're not of color, you can be silent and everything is going to be fine for you. Whereas in sometimes my silence means that I'm going to be treated worse tomorrow. If I don't say something now, then I could be treated worse tomorrow. I've had people come to me and say, well, non-people of color, well, that's not racist and that's not offensive. And I had one young lady say that to me, and I literally turned around to her and I said, okay, bitch. And she had a field day. And I said, what's wrong? And she said, that was offensive. I said, not to me. And she said, but it was offensive to me. I said, exactly. And what you're saying is offensive to me. And if it's offensive to me and you are concerned with not being offensive to me, then understand where I'm coming from and don't say it. You know, I've said on the show for over a year, I hate when I hear someone say the N word. Either you're spelling Indeed. I ain't no spelling genius, y'all. I wouldn't have wanted the spelling bee at all. Indeed. Yeah, okay, that's it. Huh? Or I don't know what you're talking about. The N word. Now, I'm not saying everybody can just go around and say the word, but don't dress up a pig. You know, say in a on a platform like this, is the word is nigga. And if it makes your skin crawl, then imagine what it feels like for someone to say that to me about me. It is what it is. And um, I still think we have a lot of work to do. Um, and part of that reason is because we have there's still statements and words that are said that unnerve some people of color. They don't speak up as much because of fear of past situations. Now, I think I know Quay and anyone else of color that's watching. When we were born, it was inbred in us that one, we have to be 10 times better than a person of non-color, including the theater world. Um, we have to guard ourselves and watch ourselves when we're driving, definitely, especially if we think a policeman isn't behind us. Um, and because of that, we come home more often than not upset about something that happened during that day. And do we address it as the way we're feeling it? Because then we're seen as the angry black man or the angry black woman. But now I'm gonna tell you, when I call that when I call that girl a bitch, she was livid. But I couldn't call her an angry white woman. It would have been seen, well, you called her that word, and that's offensive. Okay, well, there are things that are offensive to me that honestly only another person of color would understand. Um, and it's happening in theater. As I said, there are two theaters I know of who I actually personally had conversations with some people from those theaters after having some conversations with some people of color. And one didn't put out a statement at all. They just reiterated their motto and their core value statement. And one put out a statement that more or less said all lives matter, not supporting, they're against racism, but they didn't get specific into uh, supporting people of color. And that looks politically safe so that you don't offend your white audience and you are able to keep your money. But then I have theaters, and I'm going to call these theaters names. I have Interact, and I have RLT, and I have Pure Life. Really? Who is ringing my?
Theater Raleigh.
Yeah, I have those theaters who are doing the work. Lauren, you talk for a second. Someone's at my door. What in the world?
Hi everyone, and thank you for being here. I want to kind of back up for a second. So, last week, as Juan said, I was on a live chat with an actor who was in the North Carolina theater production of Songs for a New World. I know a lot of you went to see it and enjoyed it, and it was nice to be back at the Duke Energy Center and see theater on that stage. I was very excited to talk to Kyle Taylor Parker. He was excellent in the show, and we had a good conversation. Hello, Andrea. Thank you for being here. Quelia, Timothy. And um, during the conversation, on YouTube, because I do feel like our Facebook community is very much of a community, and I don't know that this would happen in our Facebook community, but on YouTube somebody started rapid fire with many racist slurs towards our guests. And as I saw them streaming, on StreamYard, I can see the comments real time. That's how we interact with you. That's what Juan and I love to do, is interact with you. As I was seeing the comments play out real time, I blocked the gentleman or woman, whoever it was, and Kyle and I went on with our interview. I did not mention it to him, and as the interview ended, and we were off air, I thanked Kyle for being with me, and he went on his way, and I went on mine. Um, and afterward, in reflecting on this, I think I behaved like a lot of white people would behave in the same situation. I don't love confrontation. Um, and I thought somehow maybe I was protecting Kyle. Maybe I was sugarcoating the situation. I was just sweeping it under the rug and moving on. I didn't want to give this person any more attention or any mind than I felt his words deserved. And afterward, and thinking about it and reflecting upon it, that is part of privilege. I can walk away from it and say, I'm going to sweep it under the rug and move on. And I don't want us to do that. And so I did call Juan to say, how could I have handled it better in the almost 300 chats we've done? This has never happened. So I was caught a little bit off guard, but I do want to do better and use this as a time to learn and reflect and listen and grow. And I'm very lucky because I have a friend and brother in Juan who can help me do that. So Juan, what could I have, should I have done differently with Kyle as I was seeing these comments flash on the screen?
Address it as you're deleting that person. Address the comments. You don't have to necessarily give all your time to it, but address the comment and then ask Kyle, how does he feel about that? And what did he think about what he just saw? And the reason for that is a lot of time people who are not of color tend to want to answer for people of color. That's not what we want. We want you walking with us instead of walking in front of us. And in order to understand better what we feel, then you have to ask us what we feel. You can't feel for us. You have to ask us, how do we feel about the situation? Going and changing the name of a street, that's not making me happy because the knees are still going on to the neck. We changed the name of that street because that person was racist, and we did that for you. No, I ain't never been on that street, whether it was the old name or the new name. You ain't do that for me. And that's an example, but address that and move on. If nothing else, it may deter someone else from trying to do the same thing because you addressed it. Now, I do wish you had written the name down. I would have taken out the time at least to get the name down and report them to YouTube. And then, as I said, to try to address it, because it's not new to Kyle. I don't know Kyle like that, but trust me, it's been in his face before. And so I think that's a place where it's not intentional, but it happens. I think a lot of allies are like, let's make it good. Let's make it good for this black person or this native person or this Asian person. You know, we're gonna cover up everything that's bad and but you can't. That's the first thing. You can't. A racist is gonna be a racist is gonna be a racist, whether they are upfront with it or whether they sneak it in. And 9 out of 10 times, if they sneak it in, I'm gonna see it before Lauren, before you will see it. I'm like, wait, hold on. Yeah, that's what I thought that was. Um, and so we have to have the uncomfortable conversations. That's my new personal motto. I'm willing to have the uncomfortable conversations. They can't be they just can't be comfortable. If they are, then we are no better than we were before we even had the conversation. There's no point in having it. We have to talk about what's really going on. So when something like that hits a YouTube comment or a Facebook comment, we have to talk about it. And everybody out there that's watching, one way that that you talk about it, it's going to be difficult to not let your emotions and your feelings get in it. You're going to want to. But I promise you, if someone, say on Facebook, makes a bunch of negative comments, um, I give y'all this example. Y'all know I love music. Prince put out an album Saturday. I made a comment on some of the fan pages that I follow. I said this music is for grown people. This new music. It's not 1999 when doves cry, let's go crazy. It's for grown people. It's people who grew up in that era and now like to listen to music and maybe sip them a little bit of wine and look at Netflix. It's that type of music. And that's who it's for. It's for grown people. It's not for you people who are in the Purple Rain era. Comments were made directly to me. Who do you think you are? Why are you da 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 da? And instead of me going back and going off, you're making those comments directly to me. I haven't called you out directly. I'm trying to understand why you're doing that, why you're saying this to me. And then I become a teacher. I'm not going to defend my blackness or my comments. What I'm going to do is break yours down and grade them. I'm going to break every sentence down. I was called names. Why are you calling me names? I was told I didn't know anything about what I was talking about. What makes you the authority on what I know? So most of the time, people who are racist and willing to come out and do stuff like that, they're not doing it to be intelligent. I'll say it like that. And so I would suggest that you not come back at them like that. It's difficult, Quay, but I would suggest that you not come back at them like that. Use their own words against them. They will shut up, and that's what you do. I just think this was a spammer that wanted to get some attention. That did what they did, what whoever that was, that person did last week. And as I said, that person didn't even give their real name. And I'm hoping we don't have to address anything like this again. Not necessarily because it's not going to happen, but we just want everyone that we interview in the future to know we're aware that it can happen. I don't care how many passwords you put up there, somebody can hack in and do something stupid, but we are going to address it. And I want to ask everyone that's watching, do you think, in your honest opinion, you think we should address it or we shouldn't address it? Yes, you are definitely right. It requires a level of emotional intelligence and maturity that you are demonstrating now, which requires ongoing practice. And you know what? It's sad that I do have that practice. And there's only one way I have that practice. When I was young, I would have lost it. But I had to get to a point where I said, no, I'm not gonna take it in that direction. Believe believe it or not, that's probably a benefit of having Donald Dump in office for 4 years. It's because I had to say, okay, let me get right with this. Let me get right and get ready and yeah, because this is yeah. Um, and so I do, and I will tell y'all, I've been told I race bait. No, I don't race bait. I want you to understand what you're saying and what you're doing, and that's in and out of theater. Yes, ma'am.
So, just as black people are not a monolith, white people are not a monolith, but I'm going to play token white person for a second because over the last week, as I've reflected upon this, um, many of the white people that I've spoken to, many whom consider themselves allies, um, said things to me like, I would have done the same thing. And when I've kind of pressed and said why, I think one thing is, Juan, that as a white woman, I can speak for myself. I was afraid if I said anything to Kyle about this, that I would say the wrong thing, that I would say the wrong words, that some stupidity would come out of my mouth. So, what are you saying to particularly the white folks watching? Motion detected at the front door. What would you say to those people who say, I don't want to say the wrong thing. I don't want to offend? Because to me, silence is offending. So then what?
You have to, as and tell me, am I pronouncing it right? Is it Andrea or Andrea? Lauren, call you
Andrea. Andrea.
Andrea. See, Andrea. Yeah, get me right, girl. Get me right. Don't let me just mess it up. As she said earlier, it it's an ongoing practice. Um, for the most part, a black person or a person of color. I'm trying to stay there because I don't want everyone to just think I'm talking about me. Um, a person of color has no problem. Um, I won't say teaching, but I guess yeah, teaching someone else their culture. That's not where the problem lies. Um, the the problem is we're expected to do it out without someone like yourself, Lauren, asking the question. And what I mean by that is if you couldn't have made a comment that was worse than what was said. You couldn't have, unless you were just gonna call him a nigger right there on live on the thing. You couldn't have said anything worse. You could have said, I'm sorry, but I have to address this. And that's fine. But part of what I think it is, like you said, you don't say anything, so you're just like, okay, well, I'm just going to leave it alone. And believe it or not, that actually hurts worse. It's worse to just leave it alone. And I'm using that as examples of several other things, because that goes back to that privilege. And I get what you're saying. You don't want to say the wrong thing. I don't think they in that situation, there isn't a wrong thing to say. If you're an ally, if you're a true ally, nothing you can say is going to be wrong. And if it is, if it does possibly come off a little bit in the wrong way to the person that you're talking to, they will correct you because and they will really know you're an ally. They say, well, hold up, this, and you go, okay, and then they truly know you're an ally. I don't know what it's like to be a white person. I have to ask. I can go off of what I see, but there's some things I'm going to ask. And so, excuse me. So it's that saying, like I said, saying something is better than saying nothing. So, and Sima, I mean Seema, I can't read Seema. Um, yes, systematic racism, ignore, excuse racism, exactly, and we need to have these uncomfortable conversations and talk. So, anybody out there watching, let me finish this sentence. Don't be afraid to find out and to ask. Yes, yes, ma'am. I'm sorry. Go ahead, Lauren.
Okay, so something else that I heard this week and truly throughout the torn conversations that we've had over the last year and a half is but I created a safe space, Juan. We had a safe space. And it's funny because when this happened, the first thing in my head was, what? On my platform? My platform is a safe space. So talk to me about this notion of safe space, because I don't think, no matter what the statements are, no matter what the actions that you've put out, when people come into your building, when audiences come into your building, when the public is there, when you've got volunteers there, there's no way to create that. What is a safe space, Juan?
That's
Is
and
there
that's
is there
exactly
just
where we're going. That's exactly where I'm going to start. What is a safe space? Am I safe from the ladder falling on my head? Am I safe from being called a racial term? And am I safe from being sexually harassed? Did you just put safe space because you didn't want to write your rules on more than one sheet of paper? So you just put safe and feel like that would encompass all, and we should be okay with that? No. Um, you need to be specific about those things. I'm sorry, I'm kind of reading comments too. You need to be specific about what it is supposed to be. And another thing, reason for my big stink last year at this time was that it became, and as I say, me saying, hey, hello, how are you, and then the other person saying I'm fine, but me knowing that they've experienced, somebody in their family had cancer, somebody in their family had COVID, somebody passed away from something, something, something. No, you're actually not fine, but you're saying it because that's the thing to say. And that those are the comfortable conversations. This is a safe space. Those are comfortable words. I can't stand those words. Those are trigger words for me. Um, when I hear it, I'm just like, no, I need to know what that means. I need you to break that down for me. And to say, we're against racism. Okay, well, who's not going to say that in this day and age? Okay, sure you are. um, I'm sorry, I'm reading comments too. Um, that's right, Mama Tim. If you are creating a safe space, there has to be a defined definition. As an organization, the board and staff has to be willing to take the steps to make the decisions to remove those toxic people from the environment. Um, yeah. So go ahead, Lauren.
I
While I'm thinking my trigger
yeah,
words.
I
Mhm.
and guys, I what folks, I'm sorry. I just use, I'm old. I use the word guys, but folks out there on Facebook, the reason that we're not going to disable the comments, because this was my other reactionary thing, and I want to be completely transparent about this. I called Juan. I said, we're disabling the comments so that our guests cannot see the comments as we are going live. And Juan said no. And this beautiful conversation and these beautiful comments that you guys are posting right now in this wonderful conversation we're having, this is exactly why we don't. I mean, until we can all safely gather and be together and feel comfortable with that, it's important that we be able to have a platform for these conversations. So we will not be disabling the comments, and we will not be disabling YouTube. What
And
Papa
one and
Juan said no. I'm going to call you Papa Juan. He's my brother. He's not my papa, but Brother Juan said no.
the reason why I was like, no, you can't disable the comments, because when someone says that to me, I can't just go in the house and never come back out again. I still got to live. So why hurt the people that we have in the comments now because of some idiot? Like, you can't stop. And also, you're not going to get the word out and the point out that you want to get if you start shutting stuff down and saying you can't, no, we're not going to let people do stuff. Uh, um, so, Seema, I'm laughing at your last comment. Um, so you just can't do that. But yeah, I've heard a lot of trigger words all my life, but when I started hearing them in theater, that's when it really bothered me. Um, and theaters, I need y'all to get it together. I didn't finish my statement earlier when someone not I got a sign on my door that says no solicitation. I look out my window and they want to sell me something. You better go on somewhere. Um, Interact, Pure Life, RLT, um, JTP,
Theater Raleigh.
Theater Raleigh, and Burning Coal. I've had some conversations with each of them, and some things are changing, and they're working on them. Now, those just happen to be the ones I work at. I'm not saying the ones I didn't name aren't necessary. Well, I'm not saying all of them aren't doing it, but I do know some that aren't. I went to one particular website, and it looked like snow across the screen. Not one person of color at all. And when I mentioned it to someone that was involved there, the that someone had talked to me and asked me, had certain theaters put out statements? Did they ever put out statements last year after the George Floyd thing? The comment that came back to me was, why are people of color saying they're not going to come audition here because of that? So you're not concerned that you didn't put out any solidarity statement. You're concerned that people of color may boycott, and it's going to look bad in um, with publicity. It won't look good on your page, on your social media sites. Or I get like I said, I got comments that never mentioned a person of color or Black Lives Matter at all. It just said we condemn all forms of racism and sexism, and all people are important. It was short of just coming out and saying all lives matter. All people are important. Look, let's face it. Up until maybe 10 years ago, for the most part, theater was a good old white boys network. That's what it was. We were brought out for the Wiz, and we were brought out in the month of February. And then after that, put your good little darkies back on the shelf, close the shelf up until next year this time, and then you can pull them out again. We're not doing that anymore. And I personally don't care if I never do theater again. I'm going to shake some things. And it was kind of brought up to me that, well, you might not want to do that. You might not want to call them out by name. And I'm not going to call them out by name tonight. But why? Why not? It's time. It's past time. Is way past time. It's time for people to step up. If you are bold enough to not show your support and to make blanketed statements and more or less to show your racism, then why can't you be called out for it? If it was something I did, I would be immediately called out. Um, you know, um, situations
And
where
I do think
go ahead.
Juan, I do want to say, a lot of because you follow Beltline to Broadway, your friends of Beltline to Broadway. We just became a 501c3. We have a board of directors, and Juan is our board chair. And I have never been more grateful to have Juan. Now, Juan and I've been friends for a while now. I call him my brother, and certainly not flippantly, but he is really like family to me. And when this happened this week, I didn't have to scramble to look for a token Black person to ask questions to, or go to an all white board and say, how do I address this issue? We have a lot of diversity on our board. I have Juan, who is my friend, and I can say I kind of screwed up. I feel like I didn't do this right. I feel like I could have reacted better. What do I do? What do we do? And I think that speaks to why we have to invite everyone to the table on our boards, and that means relinquishing power. And that's part of the problem in theater that we've seen through so many of these torn conversations is relinquishing power is a difficult thing. And so, but it happened, guys. So that's my
Um,
statement.
you talk about the token. um, okay. The I don't mind being the token, and I'm gonna tell you the reason why. I'm not saying I'm a token at Beltline on Broadway. No, I'm talking about in theater. I don't mind being the token because sometimes it takes somebody getting in for somebody else to get in. And if I'm already in the door, hopefully what I'm doing is making a way for someone else that looks like me to get in. And that is honestly what I try to do. So that's fine. You want to call me the token, whatever. If that's going to get me in the door, I'll do the rest once I get in there. But somebody has to get in the door. And if I get in and I don't help, that's a totally different thing. But excuse me, I don't necessarily believe that the whole token thing is a negative thing. I'm sorry, I'm eating y'all. Eating some cashews. But I'm going where Mama Tim wants me to go. Activate showing off people just to put that on social media. Yeah, exactly, Seema. Yeah, they do show us off, don't they? They love to put us on the front of something, and then you walk in the theater and ooh, you don't see a spot up in there. Mama Tim wanted me to talk about the confrontation. I am on two boards. I'm on the board at Interact, and I'm on the board at Beltline to Broadway. And it is something that is addressed about our individual social media presence. It is addressed on all boards that I currently reside on. I have never been silenced or stopped for my speech on my color. And fortunately for other people of color, and I'll just say it, and I'm not trying to sound arrogant with it. Fortunately, I've done what I've done in the last year so that some of you other people of color who are watching don't have to be silent anymore. Yes, I put myself on Front Street. I put myself out there, and I know I did. But because of that, you don't have to be anymore. So you speak your truth. And if it's confrontational for someone else, then that means they have been so used to being in their racial bubble. I won't say racist, in their racial bubble, that they can't see anything but what they're dealing with. And you bring it out. If you're leaving a place and it makes you so uncomfortable that you don't want to go back, and it's because of how you were treated, then that's wrong. That's completely wrong, and you have to address that. And you have to say what it is. And I can tell you guys, I know several persons of color who have dropped out of theater in this area because of that. And that's ridiculous. That's no. You're going to put me out. I ain't going nowhere. And I'm gonna call you out on the way out. Go ahead, Lauren.
The other side of the confrontation piece, I just want to point out, and I said this earlier, but I want to say it again. Um, the fact that I can even say to someone, which I did this week, in reflecting on this incident that happened, I kind of said, I hate confrontation. And this friend of mine said, and that is part of your white privilege. You get to avoid confrontation because of your privilege. And I called Juan and I was like, Juan, this stopped me in my tracks. I need to talk to you about this. And Juan's like, yeah, and but I think so often as white women, as women, we're taught that you don't make waves, you don't confront, you don't, and we have to change what we're teaching, and that's what touring is
And
all
yeah,
about.
and it's funny that you're saying that because we have a white woman that's in a strong position in theater in Raleigh now, and I'm not necessarily going to speak for her, but I know she has gotten pushback from from white males that she's rocking the boat at a certain theater that she is involved in, and she don't care. She gonna rock that boat. There are gonna be some changes. It's not gonna happen overnight, but there are gonna be some changes made, and they have to be. You face those who are causing the confrontation. We'll back down. And that is true, Mama Tim. Most of them are bullies, and they will back down when you confront them. And that's one of the reasons why you go ahead and confront them. To actors out there, if you are ever at a theater and they are discouraging you from speaking your truth and telling how you really feel, as much as you will enjoy being in that play, that might not be the place. That might not be the place for you to go. That's not the safe space anymore. That's the safe artistic director space. It's not safe for you. And I probably would skedaddle. Um, yeah, I kind of laughed at Lauren a few times because I'm like, yeah, she's the revelation that's coming over her, like came over to me 30 years ago. Like, yeah, I know where she is, but yeah, we have a platform now that we can. 30 years ago, I didn't have anything. It was just me running my mouth, and of course, I was the angry black man again. So all this came about because of that one comment, and I'm glad it has, and I hope one thing I definitely hope you guys take away from this is before you do something, find a person of color and have a conversation with them about it. Because now at the same time, and this part I don't necessarily like either, There are times when a non-person of color would do something, and the person of color will have to pay the consequences. We don't want that either, because um, my strategy may be different than your strategy. Example: your strategy may be to go downtown with a can of paint and paint BLM all over everything you see downtown. I'm the one that has to pay for that. So I'm trying to understand from you, why did you do it? And when you say to me, well, people need to know and people need to da 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 da, but that's not the way I want to go about doing that. That's not the way I want to do it. And you're sitting here saying, well, I did it for you. Did you talk to me before you did it for me? I don't go doing stuff for Lauren because she's white. I don't know. Mama Tim, I'm not doing something for Mama Tim because I don't even know what color Mama Tim is. I'm just gonna leave that alone. I'm just just gonna back up from that one. I know we're not gonna touch that. Nevertheless, um, so be careful, because as Lauren, where are you? Right here. As Lauren expressed, she was angrier than I was, and I don't think she could have said the wrong thing to the guests, but it's a possibility she could have done some stuff concerning the idiot that made the comment that I would have been like, no. But honestly, in this case, there was nothing she could have done wrong. Go ahead, Lauren.
We have been very transparent with North Carolina Theater, and we've been in conversation with them all week. Um, we invited them to be here tonight. They were unable to. They just closed out a show and they're auditioning for their next show. So they're pretty busy, but they did send us a statement that I would like to read. North Carolina Theater is grateful to Lauren Van Hamert and Juan Isler for addressing equity, diversity, and inclusion issues within the Triangle Theater community with tonight's torn discussion, and to Beltline to Broadway for working to provide a safe and inclusive platform for BIPOC voices. At North Carolina Theater, we believe that artists and arts organizations are in the unique position to express aspirational goals for society, and we aspire to create a more inclusive, equitable, and diverse society through our work both on stage and behind the scenes. We recognize that sometimes artists in the spotlight face painful and cruel public commentary, and this week was a reminder to us that this is particularly true for BIPOC performers. We deeply regret that one of our artists, a brilliant, charismatic person who we feel so fortunate to have worked with, had to face vitriol from an anonymous stranger in what was meant to be a moment of introspection and celebration of his career and work. It was a painful reminder of how far we still need to go to create the society that we aspire towards. We're grateful to Juan and Lauren. We're grateful to Lauren for addressing it quickly, and like Beltline to Broadway, we at NCT will use this experience to continue to improve and build a safer space for our growing number of BIPOC artists. So that's from North Carolina Theater and Eric Woodall. And I do, Eric's been a guest on. He's been a guest of mine on the podcast, and I'm sure we'll have another chance to talk to him really soon. So,
Yes. Okay. Yeah. So we got that statement. We got 6 minutes because you got to get ready for something else. And I want you to get ready for that. So, guys, we didn't really come on to have a regular torn. Lauren really did, like I said, some light bulbs went off in her head, and so she wanted to talk about it and get it out. I want to say this to theaters out there who are talking about having whatever you want to call it. At my job, they call it OIED, Office of Institutional Equity and Diversity. One of the boards I'm on, we call it DEI, diversity, equity, inclusion. And when you start changing letters around, my brain got whatever you calling it with those letters in it. If I can't go to your website and see it, I want you to really think about what you're saying and what you're doing. If I go to your website and I don't see any diversity, or if I don't, let me stop with that word. If I don't see any diversity, then I'm gonna have a hard time thinking there's equity and inclusion in anything you do. That's just the truth. And there's several websites that I can pull up right now of North Carolina, of Wake County theaters, that I don't see any of that up there. Now, let me put this out there too. I have somewhat of a problem with affirmative action. And I'm gonna tell you the problem I have with it. Don't hire me just because you're filling a quota. Don't put somebody in your play just because they're a person of color and they are a horrible actor. Tell them to sit their butt down somewhere. But if you haven't done the work to go out and find a person of color that can do what it is you need to have done in that play, then you haven't done anything. Again, you're being silent. Well, that's a black person over there, and I knew them, so I put them in the play. Now, when that black person gets a bad review as an actor, what you're going to say in your theater is, well, see, we told you, we tried to get one, yes, and we tried to get one, and you see what happened. Well, we're not doing it again. Yeah, okay. That's a cop-out. And that happens. So, so guys, what happened last week just shows that the road is not over. The journey is not over. Just because we don't do touring every week or every other week like we used to, it's still not over. What I'm hoping now is that theaters have taken what's happened in the last year and they are running with it. Well, phrase that. They're walking with it. This is not a sprint or run. That they're walking with this every day. And if they're not, guys, whether you are black or white, call them out. If you have to talk to people on the board or people you know work there, ask them questions. Ask them, why is this like this? Because I'm pretty sure the ones I've asked, it's gotten back to some artistic directors. Good. Okay, what are you going to do about it? I don't want to talk to the artistic director. You talk to him. You work there. This is what I see. And if I see it, I know a lot of other people of color see it. So, Lauren, I'm done. I done ran my mouth now. You don't sit here and put me on my soapbox. I'm trying to eat my cashew.
I thank you for being available tonight. And now I'm hearing an echo. Why am I hearing an echo all of a sudden? Thank you, Juan, for being here, for doing this special edition of Torn so that we can be transparent, be open about this. I hope, just like I've learned and reflected over the past week, will continue to learn, that other people will do the same. Keep asking questions, guys, and keep asking questions, folks, and keep talking to each other because that's what we need to do. And theaters, I know you're reopening. Just keep doing the work because there's folks in our community who want to keep you accountable, and if you don't have people coming to audition and you're not getting people in the seats that you think you want to get into the seats, perhaps examine why that might be. So Juan and I will be addressing the equity issue. You people have reached out to us and asked us to discuss actors' equity and their open access policy, and how that addresses equity, diversity, and inclusion. we are working on that. I'm working very hard to get somebody from equity to be involved in that conversation. So look for that possibly happening next week. I know Qualia is ready to be on that conversation. And and just keep supporting local theaters, especially the ones that are really doing the work.
Last thing I want to say, which I will start saying on every torn, just so y'all know, y'all are the first to hear it. Have the uncomfortable conversations. That's all I got to say.
Yes. Thank you. Thank you everyone for being here and for all your comments. I love our Facebook family, Juan. I do, I do.
Yes, I'm going back looking through now. Yeah.
We're gonna take a little intermission and I will be back at 8 p.m. and we will be having a conversation with several camp directors about how our kids are doing. A lot of camps have reopened. A lot of kids are going back to in-person camps and school, and our kids are our kids are going through a time just like a lot of adults are, and so we're going to check in with some of our camp directors and see what's happening. So come back and join that conversation at 8 o'clock. Thank you, everyone. Thank you, North Carolina Theater, and thank you, Juan.
Thank you, guys. I'm going to eat my cashew.
All right.
Are we running credit?
Are
we running credit so I can run my mouth?
Oh, okay. I'm gonna. All right, all right. I'll run the credits. Juan likes to talk during the credits, so we're gonna do it.
Okay. So yes. So, anywho, I'm so glad you guys came on to look at us tonight and not knowing, this not being a regular night, but y'all came in here. But what I want to tell y'all is tell y'all cousin not to come back and knock on my door anymore when I'm in the middle of a show.